Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here at the World Blockchain Summit in Dubai, and we're going to continue this exciting agenda and contribution by now focusing on two key elements, which is open banking and finance, or the usage of open APIs, and its application in DeFi. We have a few key elements to actually cover during the topic today, but the format that I will follow is we will get each of the panelists to introduce themselves, a little bit of the experience that they have, and their first contribution to this topic. So each one will get about, let's say, 3 minutes or so, and we'll start with the founder of in blockchain life in Russia, Moscow, and then we'll walk all our way up back to me, and then we will go into 2 or 3 key elements as we discuss this important topic. As you know, DeFi has become one of the hot topics with the implementation of elements like smart contracts and running everything on the blockchain. As you know, today in the world of open finance, as long as you have an extremely large community, you can reach much faster traction in the usage of your solutions. And I think one of the best examples that we have is not from the DeFi world, is actually, many of you may have touched, is how many people here have heard of Revolut before or are using Revolut? Maybe we have, let's say, about 10, 20% of the audience. Revolut is an organization that has put together an API that interfaces into their wallet and into their mobile app, and they have extended a whole series of services. But the thing that is very interesting about Revolut is they are concentrating on 2 elements: the user interface and the customer base. So they own the customer relationship, and they are actually having that user experience that is different than everybody else. Now, how important is that? They have set the standard to how fast one person can open an account and perform their first transaction. And the solution that is, I call it the 14 clicks. That means in 14 pushes of a button, you can open your Revolut account and do your first transfer. Very few applications have been able to reach this standard today. And therefore, I think, although most of us are here either marketeers or technologists, the important element is how are we going to service that customer. And the key element here that is Revolut, although they're focused on the user and the customer and the user interface, everything else is APIs. So they talk to things like currency, cloud, and others. And all these ecosystem of partners are the ones that give their solution strength. So, Sergei, please go ahead. Sergei,
if it's possible, I would like to answer the last.
Sorry, go ahead. Just introduce yourself.
Introduced? Okay.
And do you first 3 or 4 minutes about open API for banking and DeFi and how you see the value of these 2 elements basically coming together.
If I introduce myself, founder of Listing.Help, we are the largest in the market which help with listing project on crypto exchanges. We help with Binance, OKX, or a lot of different exchanges. Also investing fund, Jess Capital, we are focused on DeFi. We are focused on investing in the early stage and focus on yield farming. And also blockchain life. If we discuss about DeFi, why I like DeFi, because a lot of people can do a lot of things, trade or swap or transfer without any control, without any KYC, and no one can assess the assets.
We go to our second panel moderator. Do you have a headset? Or?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It's working? Working?
Yes, please. Yeah, it is. I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, very well.
You can hear me? Or take the, it's working? Okay, so I am Manuel. I am the founder of Gaugecash. the first decentralized monetary system in the world. We made a keynote yesterday, and just to start the conversation about DeFi and APIs relating to banks, Revolut is an amazing company. So the example that you put comes to our, the vision, for example, that we have for our project is make user interface very easy for let's say, the normal people or the average payer. In our case, we want to go disruptive all the way, meaning we know that there's going to be a curve of adoption. But in our case, we don't want really, hopefully this doesn't come out wrong, but like partner too much with traditional bank systems. We want all the way into, let's say, transparency, blockchain, immutability, and our project is in the heart of that because we want people to be able to pay goods and services with no asking anybody, right? But we know there's going to be a curve of adoption, and we will need to make partners. So, for example, Revolut is a very good example of someone that is taking the traditional bank a little bit away and then bringing a lot of value to users with this visionary user interface. And in our case, in our project, in our particular venture, we want the same easyability for users to be able to get into the blockchain work. In our case, very particular case.
We thank you, Manuel. We go to our next.
Hello, I'm Jess, founder and CEO of a company called Uberstate Incorporated. We're the headline sponsor this year for this event. Welcome. So I believe I spoke about this yesterday in my speech. We were a banking as a service application for cryptocurrency, where users can come in and experience crypto, store, stake, spend, all in the same application. What we've always been able to identify is key partnerships and relationships where we're funneling the best-in-class technology into our ecosystem, not necessarily developing it ourselves. We do also have a core focus on real estate tokenization and bringing a DeFi model, a non-traditional model of finance where digital assets are held over, traditional papered real estate assets or security plays in real estate and private equity. So there's a common thread, I guess, amongst a lot of these DeFi companies is that the user experience becomes less and less complex and more engaged in an ecosystem where the actors are known versus what we've come to know as traditional DeFi, where actors are maybe unknown and you have access to this type of technology. But thanks for having me on this panel today.
Please. Yeah, yes, good.
I have one. Hello. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Rodrigo Silva, and I'm the founder and CEO of the MUNCH project. MUNCH project is a decentralized charity ecosystem. It's supported by a cross-chain token. We're not so much competing with the old financial systems or in the banking area. We're more in a charity part of it. So we're trying to decentralize charity. I think there's a world of possibilities when you democratize financial systems. Or even though, and it was already referenced here, I think one of the main challenges will be the user experience, because right now we have a costly entry point for new users. But yeah, there's a world of possibilities, and I'm very curious to see where this is going to lead us to, because, for example, as I said, we're not directly going against any traditional financial system, but we are, for example, exploring ways of allowing the users to have tax-deductible contributions, and that's a bit of a challenge.
Okay. Josipa. So,
So hello everyone, my name is Josipa Majić. I'm co-founder at Revuto. We're a subscription management company, which means that we help manage your Netflixes and Spotifys by essentially allowing you to block, snooze, or approve every payment every month. So we help you manage that seasonality. This is an interesting topic because we have both a fintech and a crypto part of our business. So in the fintech space, I'm happy you referenced Revolut because it is sort of a golden standard in the user experience and how well they've really kind of set the bar high. In our app, it actually takes you less than 14 clicks. It's 6 clicks to open up an account on board. My background is in user experience, so I know. So we spend quite a bit of time on that. But that's absolutely true. So we have a user base. One part of our user base is non-crypto and doesn't even know what crypto is, and the other part is really interested in our crypto offering, which is paying for subscriptions with crypto, being able to stake Revu and forget about subscriptions for life, and also microlending and borrowing. And what's interesting there is, because of the entire how early we are in the DeFi setup, what we've noticed is that users that are into DeFi, they don't have that high of a standard for user experience. You can kind of bore them quite a bit because we know how, for example, MetaMask works, and it's a very popular tool despite the user experience. But our non-crypto users have a very high bar. So it's as little clicks as possible. Everything needs to be fast. We also have KYC. So it needs to be instant, otherwise our support gets flooded, and it's very easy to trigger the users. So I think it's an interesting topic, and there's a lot to learn from how neobanks are doing things, especially with not only the user experience, but also how they acquire users and how they retain them and upsell them. So I think in the future, we'll see quite a few DeFi companies copying the tricks from their books.
okay. Thank you very much so far, everybody. Actually, the user experience is very critical. I'm going to give you an history from many, many years. I've been in IT for 35 years. And I remember one of the very famous companies does not really exist today because I think it has been merged into HP sometime. It was a company called Compact. And at some stage, they had released some of their desktops. And in the user manual, during the installation of this, there was press the any key to continue, or press any key to continue. So the support got flooded with lots of calls saying, where is the any key? So nobody knew where the any key was. So as you can see, sometimes we have to go with the user experience to really understand. And one of the key elements I think here about the user experience is how do we bridge the world between physical and digital? And one of the questions was, is there going to be the ongoing need for fiat currency as we move completely into the DeFi world? And I want to give a little bit of twist on that in the sense, as you know, countries are starting to introduce their CBDCs or central bank digital currencies. Are they going to either be a stumbling block or an accelerator to the world of DeFi? Of course, today we already have kind of USDT, USDC, and many variations that are kind of an early form of that on the existing blockchains that we have. But I think the key point is how do we merge the existing world in which we live today into the new digital world of DeFi, especially as it applies to currencies. And we go back from DeFi and all the way down, so we make it simple, please.
Okay. So yeah, about the stablecoins, I mean, it's a very interesting and triggering topic. I think everyone has an opinion because there's many different variations, whether they're arithmetic, whether they're backed by collateral, and if which, by what collateral. I think what's really kind of the point here is that stablecoins will only live their life when you don't need to exit in a fiat. So when you can do actually end-to-end things without triggering a taxable event, that's the main thing that we're all wondering. I think the main thing that's stopping stablecoins, along with a lot of DeFi setups, is regulatory clarity. And it's one thing that is mentioned on every panel here. It's something that we constantly talk about. But it's the one thing that companies and entrepreneurs really want to see. In our case, we also have a stable coin called EUR, because you need to pay for subscriptions in a stable way. You know, Netflix will stay, hopefully, the same amount for quite a bit of time, but our coin will vary in the valuation. So it's a really interesting topic. I think there's a lot to happen in that space. It's getting more and more heated every day. But what would really boost it to a new level would be the regulatory clarity, so that even people who are outside of our ecosystem would start to use it.
Okay. Rodrigo?
Yeah, absolutely, very well said. Also, due to its global nature, there will be a lot of regulatory challenges because, well, there's no one size fits all. Yeah, there's other way of stable coins as well, the elastic supply. That's an interesting concept as well. So I'm quite keen to see what we can achieve with that. But yeah, I mean, I think we shouldn't just think about how to merge the financial systems with the new with the old, because the old has a lot of flaws. So basically, we're just going to improve, not really try to merge it. I think there's just, as my colleague was saying, I think it's just a matter of bringing a little bit more clarification to it, stop the mixed messages from the regulatory entities, the media and everything, so people can actually fully adopt. And last but not least, I think that what will dictate the adoption once and for all will be who's going to find it useful and why. So I think that will ultimately dictate the adoption and the merge to a new financial system.
Jess?
Yeah, I tend to agree. And, you know, notionally, to do away with fiat currency at this point in human history, I don't think it's going to happen very easily. But what does happen is the adoption of technology over generations of individuals. I know this because my 16-year-old son communicates so frequently on the internet. It's like his life really is a virtual life, and his real life is more a reflection of that. So, you know what? It's a bit of an apt metaphor when you consider this adoption is happening in a very tumultuous time in the world, where, you know, the world has been affected by you know, the pandemic. Many people have lost jobs, businesses shut down, and the theme of decentralization has really just begun to emerge. It does take, you know, like in previous technologies, like you've seen with email or text, up to a decade or two for that type of adoption to be mainstream. So I think, you know, 2020 to 2030 is going to be a really interesting period for adoption overall. And it is feasible that we exit that ecosystem entirely, but it doesn't happen without a lot of, you know, infighting between regulatory bodies, you know, stablecoin providers, and, you know, new pressures that may occur as a result of these.
Manuel?
Yes. Is working this one?
Yeah,
right?
it works. It works.
So, well, this is probably what we try to solve basically with Gaugecash, right? So, I mean, just complementing what I just heard from my colleagues here, fiat, maybe I would like to make just a statement about fiat, because what we call about fiat technology right now, or I would say it this way, fiat is a technology, it's a paper money is a technology already. Maybe we don't see it that way, but it is, because 1 bill of 10 is worth, or the same paper can be worth 5, 10, 20, 100, right? So that didn't exist in the past because people use other means of trading. People think that in history they use like all the time coins of gold and silver, and this is not true. Most of people, even after First World War, yeah, notes of debt and credit, it was a means of transacting. So basically you go to the store and maybe you exchange something and you write a paper that you promised to bring back. So reserve banking system, modern reserve banking systems works that way. So central banks use this technology that we call fiat paper so that we can have enough paper in our pockets to make transactions because we believe in these nodes, right? So what I'm just trying to highlight is that fiat money is a technology in itself already. Bitcoin solves a problem, an electronic peer-to-peer cash system. So paper money is a cash system already. An electronic one, so we don't count things between us, that's the problem that Bitcoin solves. And then we have blockchain with Ethereum is the first decentralized computer. It's not like Bitcoin. And then we have other properties of blockchain that can be used for many cases. But like, just talking about fiat currency, where is in the future, I would like to separate two things. Depends on the market, because for example, if you go here to the market gold, maybe if you take some gold, you make a transaction, and they will be fine for them. And maybe this can continue. Others trust this technology that we are using around the world. Now we have this fiat currency representing, let's say, Revolut. It's just managing that representation that is backed up by central banks. And then, but I believe this can go, and really we can go through a breakthrough of decentralization of this technology and making a peer-to-peer cash system that nobody regulates, but it makes sense for everybody to pay goods and services and store value. So for me, the future of fiat, yes, it depends. As long as we exist as countries, probably there will exist some control of representation of digital fiat, or I will say more properly, the reserve banking system with whatever technology is the best at the time, but it's just technology. Decentralization monetary system, for example, what we're proposing, we believe that is a breakthrough because you don't need a central bank, right? So, and the answer for how this will be accomplished in the future, it will take a lot of time because there are a lot of challenges and a lot of risk.
Sergei?
Yeah, I agree with previous speaker, and I think I will be shortly an answer. I think traditional fiat system will exist, maybe transformed, but exist, and cryptosphere will be like adoption. It's my opinion.
Okay. One of the areas that I think is a big challenge, especially with technology, is that technology always moves faster than regulatory compliance and regulatory development. Governments have been a little bit innovative. Some in the region have developed things like regulatory sandboxes, which is a way to try regulation before it actually gets implemented and allow technology to move and then to introduce the regulation later. But of course, DeFi poses its own sets of challenges because it's completely in the blockchain, it's fully decentralized, not always, but in most cases it is. Sometimes the team is visible or not visible. Sometimes there is zero KYC going on, and obviously this is not acceptable in most cases. So I want the panelists, starting with Sergei, to give their opinion on how do we merge this or address this elephant in the room, which is how does DeFi get to be more legitimized in terms of regulatory compliance, and how does regulatory compliance kind of create oversight over the DeFi space?
If we discuss about DeFi regulation, of course, a lot of authorities are afraid that they cannot control transaction, they cannot control some swapping, because if we discuss about DeFi space, you can do, as I said, without any KYC and anonymity. But the main problem in DeFi regulation, I think, it's simple. They don't know how to control.
Okay, Manuel?
Oh, yeah. Let me pass. Yeah, my thinking is a good answer from a historical perspective is I like, in a sense, market competition. So what I mean with this in the DeFi, now we have all these small investors and users that are very open to these technologies. And I will suggest them to go deep, make their job, and choose what they want. You know what I mean? Because, for example, Revolut, they offer an amazing user interface. But if there was no one using that amazing user interface, there will be nothing. So there's these two parts, right? So I don't believe that we need too much regulation. I just believe that we really need very good projects and very good leaderships in those projects. People to know what they're doing. And in the other part, we need people that understand what they're using and choose the best. And then in that case, I believe, I don't believe too much in, like, for example, in blockchains, some blockchains, I mean, maybe I'm making a mistake, but like asking a lot of people that doesn't understand too much and just voting for something, probably that will not be the way. But voting with believable people within a project that they know what they're doing, that's the leadership, right? And then the users can check, in this case, what that project services or whatever it is, and it's our job together just to take this responsibility. It's like in our countries, right? Like maybe we want the government to make everything. I don't believe in that. We need to make our part. So in the user part, they need to check. And in our side, we need to be good leaders and bring awesome products. And then we'll see what happens.
Jess?
Yeah, so to add to that, I think consensus is really important when it comes to regulation and enforcement of those regulations. We're a Canadian money service business as well, so we have the experience of dealing directly with regulatory oversight in our business through FinTrack. And we've also seen the changes that occur as industries grow. So for example, there was not a reporting requirement before a certain time period, but now the reporting requirements have grown. And that, I think, the dialogue between regulators and expectations and accountabilities and issuers needs to be a lot more open source. And I don't think that necessarily differs from country to country or region to region, because the expectations are usually set at a pretty high standard. And if you can't reach those standards, or you don't have the appropriate mechanisms or connections to get in there, you'll never be efficiently regulated. So I think it comes down to, again, open source technology that allows that communication between regulators, issuers, platforms, where there's a consensus as to what constitutes true KYC, AML policies that every company should follow. Not just one, but like everybody should aspire to and have equal, democratized access to.
Rodrigo?
Well, similar to blockchain, there should be open source dialogues. Yeah, I truly agree, and I do feel the need to regulate, because you need regulation for such things such as consumer protection. So there does need to be some regulation put in place. Now, another thing is, like, we're talking about the decentralized finance and comparing it to the old financial system, but it's not the old financial system. It will offer everything the old financial system offered plus more. So when we're talking about regulating decentralized finance, due to its diverse and fragmented nature, I think we should question first, what are we trying to regulate? What exactly? Because the decentralized finance is a broad spectrum, and it goes from established companies that have a small portion of their business being done on the chain, and that's basically to just dematerialized assets through smart contracts and everything. And then you have these emerging fully decentralized organizations, and how are you going to regulate that? That's a big challenge, because it's, one of its characteristics is exactly not to be a centralized entity. So yeah, I don't have an answer for that, because I didn't study law, but I do see those challenges. But I think that the most important question is, as I said, what are we trying to regulate? And as my colleague here said, definitely those dialogues should be open source, so everybody could contribute, so everybody can have a say.
Josipa?
Yeah, so regulation is good, clarity is good, we want that. I think what's starting to profile, and it was echoed on several panels here, is that what's likely going to happen is that us entrepreneurs will have to shop around different legislations and pick what's best from what they offer. It's very unfortunate that some countries are checking themselves out of the game, the US as an example. But what's happening is a trick that we can again borrow from the fintech playbook, which is that certain more nimble, smaller countries are taking the advantage and building these sandbox-style regulations. Classic example here would be what Estonia and Lithuania are doing in Europe, which is really progressive and attracting a lot of business. And these licenses are then passported on an EU level, and it works really well. It's very encouraging to see what the authorities in Dubai are doing, sending an explicit message that crypto is good, we're welcome here, this is a place where we can do business. Having more of this will sure attract businesses and companies to register an entity here to open up businesses. And really having that clarity is something that is actually amazing. What would be good in the future is to have a regulator and an authority on a panel like this, because what we really should be doing is educating them and making them a part of the conversation. So what's bound to happen is that the conversation about legal is not going to be a one-way street, and it's not going to end anytime soon. So we should have an open dialogue and have them be included in here. But one of the things that we should give them as kind of a bare minimum to play with is establish some ground rules. For example, KYC and AML should be basic hygiene and housekeeping at this point, so we should all agree that that's something that we don't want to fight them on, it's something that we want to work with. But all in the other kind of intricate details is something we should really make them a part of the conversation.
The audience came here to kind of go back with some homework when they return back to their offices or their countries. So one of the key elements I think people are always looking to see is what is the next step in DeFi, what's the evolution. Obviously, there's many elements that DeFi has already addressed, things like liquidity, staking, we have insurance, we have cross-chain transactions, we have wrapping of other coins, for example, which allow you, for example, to use Bitcoin functionality, but in the DeFi space. We have things like dApps that allow DeFi to even be more decentralized. So instead of because not every DeFi project is really fully running on the blockchain, and there's been a few cases where the hosting company runs out of resources for whatever reason, and then the DeFi project crashes. So fully decentralized means also having things like dApps as well, which also run themselves in the blockchain. And obviously, technologies like DAO, Dynamic Autonomous Organizations, which allows the community or the members of the DeFi to actually participate in the decision-making of the evolution of the DeFi project. So I would like to see from the panelists that are here, going back from Josipa and back to Sergei, what is their opinion in the vision of where is DeFi going? What do they think is the little spark in that is going to be the next unicorn in DeFi?
I think back to the first point that we addressed, simplicity and ease of use. In order to go mainstream, we have to first go mobile first and only, because that's what the consumer expects from every digital product in the world. DeFi shouldn't be any different. So we expect 14 or 6 clicks on your smartphone. We expect it to be fast, real time. And I think once we've addressed that, and once we establish some kind of housekeeping rules such as KYC and AML, we'll start to see DeFi going mainstream.
That's true. Go ahead.
Well, I really have nothing to add because I would just be repeating. So I'm going to tackle the topic where I feel comfortable, which is I do expect I don't have predictions, I only have hopes, and I do expect that charity is in the future as well for blockchain, because, for example, I remember I've been living in London for the past 8 years, and I remember just sitting on the tube and text 3396 to donate to this cause. Then the panel changes next month and he's another cause and he's another cause, and then you realize you've been charged 12 quid monthly off your phone and you have no idea where that's going to, no idea where that's been used. So I do hope that the transparency, the secure way of doing transactions on blockchain will accommodate charity as well, and that's what we're fighting for, because there's a full transparency. For example, we at MUNCH project donated in a little over 5 months, we've donated almost 1,000 Ethereum, and that's verifiable on chain. So we cannot really lie about that. And that's the kind of transparency that we're aiming for. And if we deal with then transparent organizations, then we can see the full life cycle of that money being applied from the person who made the purchase and sent like a percentage of that purchase towards charity to all the way through the end to providing the GPS coordinates of where the next water project is going to be built. And we do have that actually. We collaborated with Charity Water, and we do have the GPS coordinates of the water project, so we know exactly where our money is going to be applied. And for me, that's beautiful. That's quite progress.
So what you're saying is you want to see more use cases in charity, philanthropy,
embedded benevolence in all the transactions.
The behavior of the planet, so it's
yeah.
the good of
I mean, I just learned. Sorry, it's my first time in Dubai as well. I've just learned that there's an obligation, an annual obligation to provide towards a benevolent cause here. I think it's called zakat.
Zakat.
I did my homework. So yeah, so things like that. That's embedded benevolence, and that could perfectly be on chain.
Actually, that brings an interesting topic, because there's some new amazing projects that are coming up on DeFi that are addressing the topic of Islamic finance, as well as sometimes called ethical finance as well. So I think there is a big appetite, because at the end of the day, one has to understand, in today's solutions, you have to address a community. So what are bigger communities today? We go to China, we have 1 billion. We go to Africa, we have 1 billion. We go to India, we have another billion. But guess what? You go to Muslim community, you have 2 billion. So it's a very big area that obviously needs to be addressed. And in order to serve that community, you need to understand their requirements. Jess?
Yeah, I mean, to follow up, the sheer amount of use cases entering the DeFi space is what's going to propel that type of adoption. And for us at Uberstate, what we've done is bridge the gap between real world assets and being able to keep that in your digital wallet. So I think the connection between, tangibility, not just virtual, is what will help evolve DeFi in general.
So I agree with you. I believe that what I call the tie between real-world assets and virtual or synthetic assets is very important, where those assets are real estate, gold, diamonds, or any other, even companies like traditional stock market companies, because that means the person that has that digital asset now can go and claim that physical asset if that is the case. So there's a tie between both worlds. And what that really means is that in reality, it protects the value of the user, because if you invest in gold, there's chances that gold would not collapse to zero. If you have a diamond, it's also fairly stable. It's been going up at about 10, 12% a year. Real estate does go up and down, but over many years, and I'm talking 4, 5, 10, worst case, you lose 25%, but in the best case, you'll keep getting 5 to 10% a year, which is pretty good for. And your opinion, my colleague.
Well, with this question, you throw me into the boss.
Okay. No, but you talk to us about paper money and all the traditional.
Yeah.
So what is the vision for the future?
Yeah. No, what I mean is, I was just joking in the sense that we believe we're a good big DeFi project going forward. But I just want to answer your question in just as I'm not an expert. DeFi is very big. So what I'm talking about, for example, in my case, which is monetary policy and central banks, something that we're thinking is not that we're against governments, for example. So for us, if let's say we grow up, we can think of ways of taxation that have never been done before. Because if, let's say, a stable decentralized coin gets spread out pretty big, then we can think of for the first time in history, we will be able to measure cash systems, and maybe we take one little portion for the government, let's say, maybe we can start thinking of ways of government getting money in real time, transparent time, good for citizens, good for the government. So we're thinking on that as well. So that could be very good for stuff like the things that we're doing.
So what you're saying is with digital money, the government can print money faster and much cheaper. Press the button and not $1 billion.
Exactly. Nah.
Sergei, I think he needs the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, we can talk a lot about next stage of DeFi new trends, but I don't know why people talk about GameFi in this conference, on a previous conference. I think it's a new current trends. I think maybe in half a year or in 1 year, all of people will speak about GameFi. GameFi, it's like a play-to-earn, blockchain gaming, where you play a game and earn money. I think it's a new trend, and I don't know why no one talk about it.
No, I do. One has to understand that there is a very big symbiotic relationship between gaming and IT and technology. I've been in IT for 35 years, and I'll give you just a few examples very fast so we stay within time. The first one was that all the chip technology that was developed in the United States over the years was because of gaming. So the gaming created a demand for that. So Atari and all these put money to develop better computer chips. Let's take the case of Bitcoin. Most people have heard about Mt. Gox, which was one of the first Bitcoin exchanges that existed based out of Japan. Guess what was happening in Mt. Gox? Gamers were trading swords and all these things that they win in games. And so game, I do believe, yes, has a very important role to play. As we know, in the Islamic world where we are, here things like, for example, lotteries or things like that are, for example, casinos are definitely not allowed. So that's why I think you have seen there is kind of a little bit of a barrier. But gamification and gaming is very important here. We have had some very big events over the last 2 years, before COVID. One was it was here in Dubai, called Insomnia, and there was one in Saudi Arabia. This went on for a week, and there was over 10,000 people. It was held, some were held in Meydan and other very big places, much bigger than the hall that we have here. So there's definitely an appetite, and I think DeFi can definitely play a big role in that. There's actually one I wanted to add as well, which I call microfinance, which I think is very important, not just loans or lending, but lending to small businesses or small activities so people become successful in their entrepreneurial spirit across places like Africa, Indonesia, and others where, $100 over a year for them is the meaning of whether survive or not survive. I would like to thank my esteemed panels that were with me here today so that we stay on time. I don't know if we have to take maybe a group photo, and I thank the audience as well. We will today not take maybe extra questions from the audience, but please connect with the people that are here on stage. Each one represents very unique companies in very unique geographies with lots of experience and lots of ideas to take the DeFi world forward in a very popular way. So thank you very much.